Namaste and welcome. It is Rishi here from meditatewithrishi.com, and in today's video we're going to be exploring Satya or truthfulness or non-lying. Okay, now we started this series yesterday, so if you missed the first video, which is the first Yama, ahimsa or non-violence, definitely go and check that out. And today we are exploring Satya or non-lying and truthfulness. Okay, so, these are, again, the 5 rules on how to live with society for a peaceful mind, right? So none of this is about good or bad. It's very much about how can I create a peaceful environment, inside me so I can meditate, right? So why do we practice non-lying? Why do we practice truthfulness? It's pretty simple, isn't it? Because, if you lie to someone, whether it's a small lie or a big lie, it leaves this impression in us. We feel a bit guilty, we feel a bit anxious that we've lied to somebody, right? And when that happens, that is not conducive to meditation, right? It's not conducive to meditation. So if we want to have a very still, peaceful mind, then one of the things, we must definitely do is not lie, right? So it's pretty simple from that perspective. Now, taking it, going a bit deeper into this, there's always, with all these rules, there are always 3 layers that we must explore, right? So it's not just lying at the verbal level, but it is, our thoughts, our words, and our actions, right? So, for us to lie, like verbally lie to somebody, it first has to come as a thought. If we don't think of it first, we're not going to physically lie to somebody, right? So what needs to be done essentially is treating it like a resolution, treating it like a sankalpa, right? That I will not lie. I simply will not lie. And this, when we take a stance like this, it makes a difference, right? Because we've decided that I will not do this, right? For example, if you don't decide that you're not going to eat junk food, then you're likely going to eat it, right? So taking a stance is really important. And then measuring ourselves, let's say at the end of every day or at the end of every week, how did I do this week? How many times did I actually lie, right? Because, let's look at some examples, right? Because sometimes we don't notice, but every day we lie with small lies, Like, for example, I was stuck in traffic, right? I'm late because I was stuck in traffic. When we know that if I'd woken up earlier, I would have been there on time, something like that, right? I'm not going to get too specific here. We all know what we do and the small lies that we tell. And it's about trying to improve that essentially. But then there's also lying to ourselves. So, for example, talking a big game and not really following through. So saying that, I'm going to lose 5 kilos this month, or I'm going to lose 10 kilos this month, right? So when we say that, and we don't actually follow through, we don't actually do it, then what we said becomes a lie, doesn't it? And that, it impacts us as well, right? So maybe the result is not as good as example, but if you say that, okay, I'm not going to eat junk food from today, right? And then, 5 p.m. hits and you want the crisps, you want the chocolate, or you want the cake, and that what you said in the morning has become a lie, right? Even though you didn't know it at the time, you thought, I'm basically going to follow through with this, but you didn't, and that becomes a lie. And we never think about this, but that actually has an impact on us because we've lied to ourselves. We haven't followed through with what we said we were going to do, and every time it makes an impression telling us that you didn't do it, and that plays on the mind, and that is really not good if you want to have a peaceful state of mind, right? So, it may be better to just have a smaller goal that we set, like, I'm only gonna eat 1 chocolate today, something like that, right? But okay, and one thing I used to do a lot, and this used to make me miserable, is when I was on my journey, trying to quit alcohol, trying to quit drugs. Every weekend after my hangover, I would say, I'm not drinking from next week, right? And that happened for years. And it almost made me feel like I would never be able to quit, right? And now that it's been, a long time where I haven't had a drink, the amount of peace that I have inside me it's something I've not felt before, when I was living that life previously. So it definitely makes a huge difference, right? It definitely makes a huge difference. And another way of practicing truthfulness is practicing what you preach, right? So I'm here talking about meditation. There's nothing that I ask anybody to do, whether it's waking up at 4 a.m. or, doing a mantra meditation or whatever it may be, right? There's nothing that I will ask somebody to do that I'm not doing myself, because that again is you're not practicing what you preach. So you're living a lie, right? So these are all kind of different angles at it. So I'm gonna, let you just take a moment and just imagine for yourself, what are some of the areas that maybe you could practice a bit more truthfulness, and just be honest with yourself, because we all have areas that we need to do this. If we didn't, we would we would be divine, or we would be enlightened, right? So that's likely not the case. So just do a bit of self-reflection and see, where am I kind of not practicing this, right? If you want to be peaceful, otherwise you don't have to do it. Now, okay, so we've covered, some of the lies that we tell, and we've covered how to kind of measure ourselves to not tell these lies, right? Now what I want to do is I want to take you a bit deeper into what is the actual benefit of not lying, right? And it's not so much, a benefit, but it's something really powerful, okay? So I want to tell you two things. One other way to look at this is, when you're on the spiritual path, when you're practicing meditation, what you are trying to do, ultimately, the goal is enlightenment. Enlightenment, nirvana, liberation, samadhi, whatever you want to call it. That is the goal we're trying to reach, right? And when we reach that state, we see reality for what it is. So what does this mean? Now, right now, you are in this human body, okay? You have, 5 senses that show you a certain level of, a certain version of reality. So, there's things that you can see that an animal may not be able to see, right? So it's the same reality, but you see a different version because of the instruments that you have, and the animal, let's say a butterfly, sees a different version, right? So none of us, no living being is seeing the ultimate reality for what it is, right? So enlightenment, in one way, is breaking out of this cage of the mind and body and seeing things as they are, okay? And that ultimate reality is also called truth. That's why we say that, all religions speak about the same truth, the same ultimate reality, okay? So if this truth is what we are striving for in meditation, then like attracts like. Remember the law of attraction. Like attracts like, right? So if you do not practice truth yourself, how can you ever have a vision of that ultimate truth? It's not possible, right? So to have the vision of the ultimate truth, to see that ultimate reality, we must practice truth. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, leave a question in the comment below, and I'd love to explain it further. But ultimately, if we want to see the truth, we must practice truth, okay? And I want to leave you with a really powerful story, or something that you perhaps didn't know. Now, what is said, right, is that when a yogi, or when a person, practices truthfulness again and again and again, and they make it their life, they make it the very essence of their being, then at one point what happens is, instead of you speaking the truth, what you say becomes the truth. Does that make sense? Instead of you speaking the truth, anything that comes out of your mouth becomes the truth. This is why the ancient sages were able to curse somebody, and that curse would come true, because they lived in such truthfulness that what they said actually became the truth. The universe changes course, okay? And that is mind-blowing. There is a story of from the Ramayana, where there is a sage or a saint called Gautama, And his wife Ahalya, they live in they live in the jungle, and there is a god at the time, Indra. Okay, and Indra, I'm not going to get into the details now, but he is lusting after sage Gautama's wife. Okay, he really wants to. He thinks she's really beautiful, and he's lusting after her. And what he does is he tricks sage Gautama into thinking that into going somewhere, and he takes the form of sage Gautam, so he's disguised as him, and he goes into their home and essentially has sex with her, right? And just as he's leaving, the sage Gautama comes back and he sees Indra leaving, and he puts two and two together and he knows exactly what's happened. Okay, and just at that moment he curses Indra that you will lose your manhood, and he loses his manhood on the spot, right? So that is the story. Now whether you believe it or not, whether we know it's true or not, is not really the point of it here. The point is that in the yoga tradition, it is very clearly demonstrated that when you speak the truth, what you say becomes the truth. So it is really, really powerful, okay? But ultimately, for us, I think why we are trying to practice the truth is so that we can have a peaceful mind, so that we can meditate, and so that we can live with a clear conscience. That is the most important thing, just living free, living with a clear conscience, okay? So that is my take on Satya, the second Yama. I really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. Namaste.